Hello ladies and gents, I am Anna Diffin, and welcome back to From the Depths Ashes of the Empire Community Edition. This episode I unfortunately lost the voice file for the live commentary, which is a bit of a pain, so I am going to be doing a voiceover, and hopefully this works out quite well. In this case though, I have already edited the video, so it's a little bit different to edit it to normal, whereas I've cut majority of the out of play content out and just skip that. Most of the battles are at 2 times speed, with anything in Rambots for capturing at 4 times speed. So we'll see how well it goes. But without further ado, let us continue. So to start with, we're spawning in the Basilisk Ashes of the Empire edition by Damadoc82. This is based on one of the 40k designs from the campaign, custom campaign, which they are working on. And it is quite a nice representation. A bit big at the rear end, but that is the case for a lot of guns in From the Depths. They are just kind of chunky. There's a simple machine gun there, and then it does also have its big main gun, which is really rather cool. It just looks really rather fancy, which is always very nice. So we just try it against the Taipan as per usual. Probably should try it against something else because, well, we have moved past the Dustwind Gypsies, but I like the consistency of facing things off against the Taipan. And it seems to do a decent amount of damage, but it is definitely an artillery support piece, being flipped over rather readily by the Taipan's weapon systems. So I'll actually try it against a couple of other vehicles. So I'll go against the White Flares and go try against the Ravager. Unfortunately, I forget that the Ravager is stupidly fast, and yeah, this just this just happens. So it's not good at short-range combat with the Ravager. It is an artillery piece, it's for support. So it will work well in the campaign. But I do try it against another vehicle at a slightly longer distance. But again, its shell is a little bit slow for long distance bombardment, but as an artillery piece it is very, very potent. And as soon as anything does slow down, or against structures, or particularly something like the Onyx Watch, which are that little bit slower, I know not all of them are, but they're a little bit slower than the White Flares at least, this is going to be incredibly potent. So looking forward to using it. Next we have the Gepard 117mm by Sinflower. It's a very little cheap design, so we're going to actually be spawning in 2 of them. There we go, nice little designs. A fairly slow rate of fire, just judging by the barrel rotation there, since that is based on the rotation set in the actual settings of the gun. And yes, as seen, it's a fairly slow rate of fire, but it is decent nevertheless. And the pair of them, with their Hesh rounds, quite small Hesh rounds, are doing a nice little job against the Taipan, but the Taipan, as I mentioned before, is actually pretty good against Hesh, due to it having wood at the front, and then heavy armour on the layer behind. Also, I'm noticing this looks a little bit odd with the turret at the back and the engine at the front. Something I have mentioned before, that a lot of actual more modern tanks have the engine at the rear and then the turret more towards the front of the vehicle. Well, middle to front, not at the extreme rear. But the pair of them did manage to destroy the AI of the Taipan quite nicely. Next we have the M66349 Dazzleworm by Void. Quite a heavy design at 33k. But it has a very large turret and seems to have a lot of heavy armour. The engine is a little bit exposed at the fore there, which could prove to be a little bit of a problem. But it's a big, quite powerful turret. But doesn't really look it at the size of the hit there. So again, it's got to be Hesh or Heat just for the size of that. But having a look at it, it is a Hesh round using the squash head. So yeah, certainly could be a very potent round with the size of the gauge there, create a lot of internal spalling. So try it against one of the Lightning Hood's designs, and this is why I think it is so important that I do actually start testing things against what we're actually facing, because although it has lots of shields, a good amount of armour, facing off the Lightning Hoods here, it does score a hit, spawning internally there, but the Lightning Hood's design's still okay, and it's coring right the way through the tank's turret, disabling it. So spawn it back in. So if I just try it, say, against the Taipan, again, as this very common thing, it doesn't seem to be doing that much, just because of how the Taipan is set up, with its wooden armour on the outside, and essentially spore liner with the air gap, with the wood air gap, and then the heavy armour behind, basically making it perfect to defeat, well, heat and Hesh inbound targets. So it just doesn't seem to be doing much. So I actually decide, right, this is more for killing big heavy metal things, such as the Onyx Watch. Spawning in against the Bison here, which just fired a very large barrage, but the first shot immediately disables one of the guns, smashing through internally, all of the internal components blowing up and actually breaking off one of the main turrets there. The second shot immediately smashing in, and the third doing critical amounts of damage to the Bison there. But, as you can see, the engine at the fore there just got disabled by those cram barrages. But the tank is still operational, which is very important, as even if you have the weapons and propulsion disabled, having the actual gun firing is still good. Next we have the Micro Shadow Swarmers by Charcharodon. I have kind of forgotten to put the name on there. This is a ridiculously costly design for how small it is. And that is because it uses a lot of light blocks, connecting all these tiny little cars together, which looks neat, but it's actually really very expensive, and unless I get a much higher amount of materials this episode, I'm actually going to just end it early, because a 20k design is medium heavy tank territory, and this is definitely does not have the firepower output of heavy tanks. It's a fun little design, but it is definitely not one of the more effective ones, particularly for how much it costs. There we go, it's actually doing fairly low rate fight, and it's actually just been disabled by the Wando. It's actually lost the fight, despite being one of the more expensive designs being showcased recently. So yeah, it has been disabled, just checking around. It might be good against certain things, but anything with explosive is just going to completely murder it. And finally we have the Rocket Panzer by God Uranus. I did kind of skip past it there a little bit, but yes. This is, I'm just trying to find the weapon systems on this to start with, because it doesn't seem to have that much to it. And that is because I've broken it. Just investigating all the way around. And now I find that it's actually a spawner, and I have kind of broken the spawns. So I've just corrected the spawners and made sure it actually spawns the correct projectile, and there it is. It's actually spawning mini nukes. Each around about 800 materials, which is quite nice. And what's more to say? It's a mini nuke launcher. These things are always very, very potent, regardless of what they're facing. So I spawn in one of them separately, so it flies in really rather rapidly, and then lands directly on target, exploding, like any nuke should. It's got a very erratic flight path, which means it should avoid the majority of inbound strikes. Not so good against lightning hoods, but basically anything else, this will be extremely potent. But just how potent it's going to be, we'll find out in the campaign now. So I've decided that the first community force, after taking so many casualties against the white flares there, could do with a little bolstering. So I move over to here and then spawn in all the new designs for them. See, 2 Jeopards, Basilisk, the whatever it is, the Dazzleworm, and the Rock'n'Jag Panzer. But while I'm just trying to join them together, we get attacked in the north with our laser wall. I just go quickly straight into the battle and run it at ridiculous 4x speed, because we all know how this goes. But I just still find it quite fun watching just how ridiculously fast these laser turrets deal with everything. And that was the battle finished. One battle down, yay! And very little defeated. So, as I was going down to the south with the 1st Community Force, it does kind of go over the line, and then they actually aggro the defenders of the tile. But let's move out and attack some more tiles as well. Everything is ready to go, so let's see how they perform. So the editing is a little bit choppy here and there. That's because I didn't really have my audio cues, which I normally work from for editing purposes, which I do put in as I am actually speaking. This does make it a little bit more complex for the editing, which is why it is that bit choppy here and there, and bits don't necessarily make that much sense. And I am also watching this and speaking about it at the same time, so I don't necessarily have that same context of the game as I'm doing things. I'm just trying to have to remember what I was saying and doing at the time. Just generally observing all the new vehicles and just how ridiculously potent they are against the beholder there as they circle around. The new tank does, though, get rather smashed up there. Looks like something did ram into the front of it, causing significant damage. But it's actually also the beholder firing its main gun at it. It does have a very potent main gun, it just doesn't always aim at things. One of the tanks decides to ram there, which is a bit silly, because it's trying to ram a very spiky White Flare's design. Going over to the Basilisk to see how it's operating, and it seems to be doing quite fine, staying right at the back, unlike what it was doing during testing. Can't see any micro-nukes being launched, which is a bit odd. Damage is fairly limited, but is still definitely noticeable. So still, some things are getting a little bit more damaged, which is a bit more concerning. Dazzleworm is really getting the beating done now, but I'm considering this is the perfect time to go capture the beholder. So I just dump out the Dazzleworm, and I've noticed I am way too far away, so let's spawn in something to a little bit closer to the beholder there. Jumping out and then heading towards it. It is pretty heavily damaged, so even when I do capture this, it's not going to be anywhere near as much materials, particularly using that back gun. But even capturing a very small amount of the beholder is worth a considerable amount of materials. Fortunately, I don't really get hold of it because it's the only thing left and it despawns before I have a chance to capture it. It's too damaged, I don't get to capture it. Bit of a shame. Unfortunately now, there are 2 Raptors left, and I just cut this section out because this was just horrific. These took so long. They travelled around about 10 kilometers away from the starting position, which is just annoying. I don't know why the Raptors do this, but look how far away they are. I have planes and everything going after them. I jumped down towards them to try and slow them down, but at last some of the missile vehicles get in range, and the missiles do at last strike them. The Predator Annihilator having done the majority of the damage with that hit scan laser, so very nice done to Mad Doc 82. You actually managed to defeat these annoying Raptors. There we go, the battle is finished. But as you can see, look how far north they are. We started in the bottom tile there, and it goes all the way up to the next tile and up through where this thing is of I am here. An absolutely crazy distance travelled. The third community force though is also clearing out tiles. This time though against 2 beholders. And this is significantly nasty. Particularly because this force was designed against the lightning hoods. They were not designed to take on the white flares. All designs have got smoke and various components in them to deal with the various lightning hoods lasers and not with ramming attacks. But the white flares decided not to ram anyway, so it's not too much of an issue there. As always, the Delta Plan anti-air is highly visible with all its projectiles firing there, and the tanks are colliding and shooting each other, creating huge amounts of friendly fire. Always a bit of a problem. Vehicles are doing quite nicely all the way around, a little bit of damage sustained here and there. The Viper Mark I considerably weaker than the others at the moment, but it is the first generation. A pair of beholders being disabled and decide to go and capture them because everything seems to be doing quite fine, and this just seems a perfect opportunity to try and capture. Try going through the side here rather than through the fuel tanks, but it just seems slower. So I decided eventually to just go through the fuel tanks as normal. Using minigun and grenade as a combination, seeing if it's any faster. I'm not convinced it is any faster than just using the grenade launcher. And there we go. One of the beholders has been captured at 69%, which is a nice amount of material. And I suddenly noticed there is a green thing there. That means we have lost something. And it is, unfortunately, the Type D flyer. I don't realise that until afterwards, but yes, the Type D flyer has unfortunately fallen in this battle. So we have a couple of the Ravagers. This beholder is dead. And so we have the Type E and the repair bot going there. So I just try and help them out by getting in the way more than anything of these Ravagers. Bringing off some of the internal engine components just to try and make the engines overheat and slow them down, which does actually work, making them slow down enough for the missiles and that to hit them, which are really rather nice. And then finally we have the last Rapture, which has thankfully already flipped over onto its top. And then all the missiles which are running out of fuel are just skimming along the ground, smashing into it, making it 2 damaged. An absolutely wonderful end to an annoying craft. And there we go, the battle is finished. Now find out the casualty, which I seem to have cut out. Yes, so it was the Type D, unfortunately, was defeated in that battle. Yes, moving on to the next fight with the flares. Clearing out another tile. Immediately everything just fires off, lots of missiles, facing off against the majority of air targets this time and no beholders or chaos. So I feel much more confident in this battle of not actually losing anything. Delta Plan AA just looking absolutely glorious with all of those blue tracer rounds. I think I'm going to have to use more tracers in my build. I normally use the base bleeder because I prefer the velocity and speed increase it provides, but the tracers are so pretty. And, well, aesthetics are the most important thing of any building in Thunderdats, right? I try and do majority of combat based, but still, aesthetics are very important for the enjoyment of this game, I feel. But this is pretty much a clean-up. There's plenty of missiles, plenty of good speed anti-air. Admittedly, there's no real dedicated anti-air vehicles left in this force because I've got them all killed, but they still do an admirable job, taking only minimal damage. And with that, I was actually able to finish up the pipeline, connecting the White Flares base to the rest of the network. This means I can now move over to localized resources, which I will do for the next wars. But as I'm cleaning up the White Flares and Lightning Hoods, it will stay as normal. Being off, the first community force is going against the white flares once more. And there is a few land systems taking down a fair number of missiles. But this wave of tanks is quite daunting. Moving all in sequence, heading towards me. Thankfully no chaos, because the chaos are probably the more dangerous of them. But the colliding into each other is making it quite a bit easier for me to deal with them, as disabling the tires on the first couple of them is very, very effective. Just scouting around, seeing what's happening with all the other vehicles. And there we go. Unfortunately, the Ravager is being rammed to death by the Predator tank, which is a bit unfortunate, but it is still doing well regardless. A few more collisions occurring, but we actually seem to be doing more damage to our own vehicles than the flares are doing to us. Even if a couple of missiles almost smack the tanks automatically. Woodland paramedic doing admirable job, and this stone tank is still standing. I thought this was going to be eliminated almost instantly, but it has survived really rather well. And this little array of things is doing decently. And considered with the number of firing pieces, it would have been shot and focused down by absolutely everything. But it doesn't use that many blocks, so maybe that the few blocks used has lowered its target prioritization more than the amount of weapons provides. So the first community force just spawns in a radar balloon and then moves up north to take on the Whitening Hood's territory. So this is the one with the structure. I know where the AI is, it's directly at the top, and I've managed to spawn it so that it can shoot that laser. This is the only orientation I know of where that laser can actually fire, which is really unfortunate. The Lux is also firing, and they're both focusing heavily on one vehicle, and that is the Mammoth tank. Eagle's Mammoth tank, losing a few of its rocket launchers straight away there, but its railgun components of its main cannon is still operating okay, despite losing a fair number of blocks there. And the wooden medic is on hand to keep everything highly repaired, so good job there. Moving over to Lux. Lux suddenly changes target and shoots the stake there. And that is a hole going straight through it, destroying the entire particle cannon. A very nasty hole there. Just holds enough blocks to keep itself from being cut in twain. But it is in a great position for me to jump on and try and capture that building, which I've just noticed is AI dead. Unfortunately, by the time I get over to it, the timer has already decreased, so it is now being despawned and I can't actually capture it. However, it's really pretty as it destroys, so I decided to take a moment and just observe the destruction. As each floor, all the walls, just disintegrate down. Awesome. Just identifying what's being damaged, the breeze there has been heavily hit, along with a couple of other vehicles. The Ravager is spinning around in a bit of a death spiral. Hopefully it can get repaired enough while I'm sitting on it with my repair tentacles. The Lux though, finding the stake again and just firing another shot straight through it, blowing up some of the other ammunition stores, making it fall out of the sky. So this poor stake there, and again having the shot turn through the front cockpit there. Unfortunately, that isn't the only thing causing amount of damage. There is a wisp in the background there which is churning through and annihilating our planes. The Ravager is just getting cut to pieces, along then the Lux is firing at the impeachment. It's impeachment, isn't it? Yep. And then that is also being completely destroyed. The Reaver having now being despawned and 2 damaged. The impeachment now also getting shot at by the Wisp. The shot's just cutting straight through all wing segments almost instantaneously. Absolutely horrific amounts of damage from about a dozen or so simple lasers there. Look at how ridiculously fast that is cutting through the tank. And now that is also 2 damaged. Also, the Geopards decided to go toe-to-toe with the Lux and have got annihilated for their troubles, but that is kind of to be expected with a small design going against such a ridiculously powerful craft. Still doing well, and it is going out of the sea, which is a bit of annoying, but there we go. And here we notice the Panther 4 is in serious trouble. It is being annihilated by the Wisp, so I spawn over towards it and try and save it because its propulsion systems have been destroyed. I'll need to try and rescue it by destroying the Wisp. So try and disable the turret, but it doesn't seem to be working. So I quickly get onto it and look for the AI. Notice it's directly below my feet, and thankfully in a single shot I managed to capture it, saving the Panther 4 by a mere 2% hull. It was knocked down to 57%, and at 55% or below it would be destroyed. So very, very close there. I also noticed that the Lux is over on its belly, so I now find and have a go for its AI as well. Just a few quick shots at the AI location and it is also captured. So there we go, Lux turning at 66% health, being a whopping 175k materials. Brilliant. And so let us send that out by retreating it. And so it is going to be okay, and withdraw the Wisp as well, so that they don't take any additional damage. Looking at the little Shadow Swarmers there, they're actually doing remarkably well against the laser craft, because, well, it's lasers, and they can only hit about half the blocks on it. So it's doing better than I was expecting, but still, it's a very, very expensive design to do it. I'm going to try and capture this, and there we go. And my Doom approaches. Absolutely perfectly. The missile strikes me in midair. Brilliant. So, there we go. We lose the TIF impeachment. It's a real shame. That was destroyed by a combination of the Lux and Wisp. The Breeze also been destroyed, probably by a combination of the Breeze, of the Wisp and the Lux. The Reaver ripped apart by the Wisp. The 2 Geopards destroyed by the Lux, but they do get repaired this episode. If I can click on them, not click on the radar balloon behind. There we go, click on the radar balloon again behind. Bit of an annoyance that, but there we go. So everything is now being repaired up, and that is basically it for this episode. So, Shadow Swarmers I am going to keep in because I managed to capture that Lux. And that puts me up to, from 291k to a whopping over 500k materials, which is really, really rather handy, as it means I can afford to have a couple of designs which are basically not that good and not very cost efficient at all. Beginning next episode we will have another battle, but that is going to be it for this one. So, thank you very much for watching this episode of From the Depths Ashes of the Empire with myself and Adifin. If you did enjoy the episode, please leave a like and or comment below, as it is always great to hear from you lot. Also, be sure to check out the rest of my channel for more From the Depths videos and other games, and also swing by the Discord channel for more direct interactive chats. Otherwise, that's it from me for now, and I shall see you next time. But until then, I'm out. Goodbye!